I wanted to do something special for Christmas Day, and what we did was we went, oh no, the Queen is not going to be doing a message. I know the King did, but we missed the Queen, so we got Ken Lennox in, who's the Queen's photographer, and he'd photographed her for 65 of her 70 years reign. That's incredible, isn't it?
Amazing, mate.
So I went, what am I going to do for the 1st of January?
And what did you decide, Stu?
Roll in another antique.
I would dig out an old mate who has genuinely had one of the biggest #1 records in the world ever.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, Stu, yeah.
But it's true, isn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, Marty Christian, who taught the world to sing.
Wow.
When he was, when he was in the New Seekers. Yeah. Although you'll always be a New Seeker, I think, to everybody, really. You can't get away from that, can you?
That's the legacy, really, as you say, Stuart. Teach the World to Sing was kind of a gentle peace anthem of the 70s, really, wasn't it? The words and the sort of gentle music of the time, yeah.
It was brilliant. Everybody knew the words to that song.
It wasn't one of my favourite songs,
wasn't it?
But I was proud to have done it.
What I love about it is that it was an accident. An advertising executive from
McCann Erickson
was at an airport and his flight was delayed.
Oh, hang on, this is a new
story. Do you know this story?
No, this is a good one.
His flight was delayed, and he wasn't actually that pleased, but he was looking around the airport and there were people laughing and joking, drinking cans of Coke. And he wrote down, I'd like to buy the world a Coke.
All right.
And these were the first lyrics. They were written down. He wrote them on a napkin.
And who was it?
I can't remember his name.
It's either got to be Bill Backer.
It was, I think it might have been him.
Yeah. We were in America and we were contracted to do about 20 jingles for Coke at that time.
Yeah.
And one of them happened to be that particular song. And what they used to do, you'd record like a 30 or 60-second jingle, and then they'd filter it out to all the radio stations and then gain the reactions and teach the world to sing like head and shoulders above everything else. And they said, wow, this is fantastic. Why don't we make it our flagship commercial of the time? Which is what they did. What else has he researched?
Do you know how many records it sold on the first day it was released?
What, in England?
Yeah.
I think it was about 100,000, wasn't it?
96,000.
Yeah, it was unheard of. It was unheard of at that time, yeah.
And now it's sold over 12 million records.
Wow, God, I haven't got the royalties for that then.
Oh, it's annoying, isn't it?
I think Cook and Greenaway are pretty rich.
Yeah, I reckon, yeah.
But it does make you smile. Even when I hear it now, it makes me smile, that song.
Yeah, as I say, it's a gentle song. The message is, well, it's messages forever, really.
Yeah.
You know.
You came from
Australia.
Yeah. On a ship.
Funny, cruising, talk about cruising as well. The way it started for me, actually I was always singing and performing and with local bands in Australia and so on. And then after dropping out from university, I decided to take it up more seriously and eventually ended up touring Australia and doing all that. And then I was teamed up with a guy called Crispy and St. Peter. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
He had a huge #1 records, Pied Piper and You're on My Mind and songs like that. And his manager was a guy called Ken Pitt. And amongst others, Ken managed, at that time, Manfred Mann. He managed Crispian and an unknown singer called David Bowie.
Oh my!
And so after touring around with Crispian, Ken said, "Well, if you ever come to England, look me up and I'll see if I can do something for you or whatever, you know." And as it transpired, after a few years, it wasn't a few years, probably after about a year or so, a mate of mine called Colin Cook, who you also know
and love Colin Cook.
It's sort of, wheels within wheels.
Yeah.
Colin ran up to me to the higher place, and I'll be back, you know, any second. So I said, okay, no problem, because we knew the captain quite well. So I went up the gangplank, saw the captain. I said, Colin won't be long. He said, you what? It's 10 o'clock. We're going now. I said, mate, you can't go. His passport's here and all his clothes.
They don't care.
We're out of here, right?
Oh my goodness.
So the next thing is, I mean, because we were well known.
You must have felt so awful.
We were very well known on the ship, being the entertainers. The ship starts pulling out, and by that time everyone had heard about it.
Oh.
And they're all on the edge, and the ship's almost leaning over with people like looking. And suddenly, in the distance, you could see a taxi pulling up. Colin gets out, and he looks like an ant, and he's waving. and all the ship are going like that too. We're all waving.
Oh no!
And anyway,
Colin.
And then he started running up and down the gangway there, and then I could see him getting on a tug.
Yeah.
And then the tug came all the way out to the middle where we'd stopped. And they put out one of those rope ladders, and Colin got up the rope ladder to the most incredible cheers from everyone.
Oh, crikey.
And then, of course, we got a bollocking from the captain. But I tell you what, it was worth it, because that night when we were doing our gigs, it was just rocking.
Yeah.
So that's
not where I got the idea from Cruise Ship Heist from. When he misses the ship.
Oh yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, that going back through the years that we've known each other or kind of been parallel for so long.
Yeah.
Well, must be nearly 40 years.
Yeah. How did you get from there into the New Seekers?
Ken Pitt, who was managing Bowie at the time.
Your flatmate?
No, they were going through a divorce as far as the management was concerned.
Right.
And Bowie left the previous morning, and I took over his room for a period of a couple of months until I found my own accommodation. So I met David on several occasions. In fact, we played guitar together in Ken Pitt's kitchen. And David hadn't had any hits or any major hits at that time. He'd done a few songs, and he actually did a film in Germany. It was like a half-hour special called Love You Till Tuesday. And one of the songs he sang in there, of course, was Space Oddity. And Ken Pitt had got him various concerts in different places, and one of them was like a song, either a song contest or something like that on one, I can't remember whether it was Mallorca or one of those places. And his very first performance of Space Oddity was on this particular show.
Right.
Anyway, after their divorce, after Ken Pitt and David Bowie
Parted
left,
their ways, yeah.
Ken had a lot of David's offshoot clothes. And he came up to me one day, said, "I've got all these, I think they might fit you. Would you want to buy them?" He wasn't giving them, right? I said, exactly. And I said, "Yeah, I love the shirt, I love that shirt there, and I have this." So I bought these things.
Yeah.
And later on, when I joined the New Seekers, I used to wear these, these various bits and pieces. And one of the shirts was the shirt that David did his very first performance of Space Oddity.
Wow.
So that was it.
And is this the shirt?
It is the shirt that I do talk about on the cruise ships as well.
Come on then, tell us more.
And I'm glad
Carol's not here.
I'm glad Carol's not around. I don't know where she is at the moment. But what happened was, I used to wear the shirt from time to time. And one day I went to look for it in the wardrobe, and I flicked through, and it wasn't there. And I said, "Carol, what's happened to the shirt?" She said, "Oh, it had holes under the arms and things like that." And I wrapped it up. I've taken it to the Oxfam shop. I said, "You what?"
Oh no.
That could have been my pension.
Yeah, it could. Was David Bowie then like that? Was he as outrageous, or did he become more and more outrageous?
At that time, he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder when I met him.
Oh, why?
Well, I mean, probably for a couple of reasons, where he was falling out with Ken Pitt as a manager, and he's looking for new management. But also, Mark Bolan was making it really big.
Right.
And I think he had a bit of an issue with Mark Bolan being more successful than him at the time.
So then the five of you did you know the others, or were you put together?
David Joseph, who was our manager, I'd worked for David on various projects in Australia, and he had a TV show called Commotion, and he knew me from the Go Show, which was like an equivalent to Top of the Pops over here. And when he heard that I was in London, he tracked me down, because he and Keith had got together. The Seekers had just disbanded, and he and Keith decided to form a new group, and he thought I'd be good in it. So he was very persuasive, introduced me to Keith, and they asked me to join.
Fantastic. And the rest is history.
Well, kind of history, because the original lineup was Eve Graham and myself and three others, Laurie, Chris and Sally.
Oh, so it wasn't Paul?
No. And we toured around. We sort of started honing our talents and that, learning new chords. Keith would show us all these chords on guitar and stuff. And we went to the army bases here and there and everywhere, but had no success.
Yeah.
And at the end of the first year, we were all ready to move on and do different things. And there were contractual problems. There were sort of emotional problems, and Laurie, Chris and Sally decided to form their own band. I was going to just walk away. Eve was going to stay. And then David Joseph said that he was going to get Peter Doyle to come from Australia. And I'd worked with Peter in Australia and knew what a great vocalist he was. And so that was the only reason I actually ended up staying.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah, and you and Peter already. So when did Paul join then?
Well, the three of them joined. Lynn, Paul, and Peter joined at the same time.
Right. Right.
So three moved and three departed and three came in.
And how many records did you actually put out before?
I think there was an album and maybe one or two singles that didn't do anything. All this happened in Great Yarmouth. We were doing our one and only summer season.
Yeah.
And in those days we had a 15-minute act, and so they all knew the act. And from one night to the next, three departed, three moved in, and the audience were none the wiser.
So I did my first summer season at Great Yarmouth.
Did you?
Golden Years of Music Hall. That was at the Theatre Royal, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it there.
Mm. Well, that's actually where I met Carol as well.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, and we only got together probably in the last week of the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so...
Oh, wow.
An historic moment there too.
So what was the first hit you had?
The first hit was Look What They've Done to My Song Ma,
Oh.
which was a hit in America before anywhere else.
I love that song.
Yeah.
It was our hit in America. So what happened with that, there's an interesting point as well, because Eve sang the lead and we all did the oohs and ahs and strummed in the background, but in the actual record has got Laurie, Chris and Sally on it.
Oh.
Right?
Oh.
So the record was released whilst we were in Great Yarmouth, and nobody wanted to know in England about it. You know, no one wanted to take it up. So it was released in America on Elektra. Now Elektra, as you know, was a very avant-garde record company.
Yeah.
They had Carly Simon and the Doors, and you know, and Jack Holzman, who was the head of Elektra at that time, absolutely loved the song. He said, "I've got to get it out," and it got the top 5, sold over 2.5 million records.
Amazing.
And our career, in fact, started in America.
Yeah. And Eurovision.
Ah, that's another story.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, funny, I do all the, you know, the various anecdotes and stories on the cruises, and I think at this point I should mention that we are old buddies, all of us.
Yeah.
And you've been doing the cruises since time immemorial. And the story is this, that one day I was strolling down, I can't remember, I was in a park somewhere walking around with Carol and some other friends, and I got this phone call, and it happened to be Stuart. He said, "Mate, you got loads of stories, why aren't you doing cruise talks?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I do these, and I think you'd be really good at them, and I'll mention you to..." I said, "Well, I've never done a talk before. I just hide behind my guitar. I don't know. I can't talk, you know." He said, "Oh, you've got all this. You must have stories and that, you know." Anyway, the upshot of it was that I took the bait, and Stuart got me. He sold me to an agent, who then looked me up on Google and said, "Yeah, I think you could do it."
I didn't actually sell it. Please, let's get that.
It was a blessing in disguise, because suddenly I was trawling back through my history.
I know.
Probably things that I'd forgotten now, but you know, they're all sort of pigeonholed in those things. And
the sad thing is that we never collected it. You know, you talk about people, they have their iPhones now, they're taking selfies all the time.
Yeah, everybody's got their Instagram history, and we haven't got any of that.
Worked with, the stars I worked with, I don't have pictures of any of it. No.
I'm lucky. I do have some, and of course a lot of the fan magazines had them, so I could pick a few anecdotes and stories out of that.
You know, you had a massive career, and it was amazing, but you kind of forget as you get older.
You do. And
so you lose a little bit of yourself, really. And so I think to look back on it and to bring it all to life again.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of cathartic at that time, because you know, as you rightly say, you do, the older you get, you forget major events or minor events, anything, and then to document them at the time, and just remember the funny little anecdotes and stories of the people that you met. And you know, I mean, we did Nixon's inauguration, and they say that his favourite song was "Teach the World to Sing" while he was bombing Cambodia and flattening Vietnam. You know, like to teach.
Are you addicted to travel? I mean, I think I am, because I spent the whole of my career travelling the world, filming, and now I go around the world on a cruise ship talking about it. It's like being back. I feel at home somehow. Yeah, travelling. I don't know what that is.
Well, travel was always in my blood, very much like you, Stu. It's like, as a kid, it was an ambition of mine always to do that, and it's just continued on, you know. And as you say, the cruise aspect of it gives us the facility to see all these different places, even though it might be just a glimmer, and you think, oh, I love this place, I'll come back to it sometime, and so on. You know, it's
exactly. I think that's it, isn't it? Because there are most places you go to and you enjoy them, but you wouldn't necessarily go back. But some places they really stick with you, don't they?
And we're lucky enough to be able to see them when we're on the ships.
Very lucky.
I think we should mention when we first met, because I love the fact that I do have a picture of that. When we met in 1978.
I do remember it, of course.
Well, to explain, I was a DJ on Metro Radio, and I remember introducing you. You literally flew in.
Yeah.
There were three of you, I think. It was you, Paul, and...
It would have been Kathy.
It was Kathy. It was Kathy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Kathy. And you and I have got like 26-inch waists where sticks.
What are you talking about, mate?
Oh, but that is a long time ago. And then, I think we met at Colin Cook's parties after that.
Probably.
Yeah. And I saw you when you were doing the Eurovision choices, weren't you?
We had to do.
You were there every week.
That's right, because we were asked to do the Eurovision, and in those days the setup was a lot different, and they had the finalist songs. There were 6 finalist songs, and we had to do them live. One every week, and then the audience would vote for the best one at the end of the time. Yeah. And I remember on one occasion, I can't remember which song it was, but one of the 6, my guitar string broke just before, because it was all live in those days. There was no miming. You went there and you did this song live, and my guitar string broke, and the guy was doing the announcement and everything else, and Cliff actually just gave me his guitar.
Oh, did he?
For that particular one.
I was at school then. We used to have study period, last period on a Friday. We used to bunk off that, jump on the train and go to Shepherd's Bush. And then my dad used to come and pick us up afterwards.
And those were the days.
I know you enjoy doing the ships and you enjoy travelling. Do you often sit on mixed tables in the evening when you go to dinner?
Yeah, from time to time, because you meet some fantastic people. I mean, from all walks of life, and that's an education in itself.
It's one of my favourite parts, is to actually sit and on a table. Obviously, you get recognised straight away because you are a face, as it were.
Well, not really.
No?
In days of old, possibly.
So do you sit there sometimes and people don't know who you are at first, and then all of a sudden it clicks?
Yeah, after you've done your talk, they go, oh, it's you, is it?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the classic is you're introducing the members of the group. So this was Eve Graham, then you've got Lynn Paul, and you've got Peter Dorr, and this is Paul Layton. And it's a little story about all of them. Yeah. And this was me. And then you see that, and I go, yeah, it was. It says so in my passport. So the face that you see there is different, obviously.
So what makes you choose a cruise now?
Usually destination.
Destination.
Yeah, that's what, that's this kind of thing, because we've been fortunate enough to see wonderful places. I know you're going to Brazil.
We are.
And I asked you whether you were going at the same time as the big carnival. Because Carol and I were lucky enough to go to one of those, and that was just phenomenal.
Fabulous. Yeah. Brazil's been on my to-do list for a long time, so we jumped at it. Even though it's quite a short space, we've only just come back.
Sweet champagne, fruit.
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
Do you prefer big ships or small ships?
I've done only the biggest one was the P&O Azura, which was quite a big ship, and it's a beautiful ship, and I really like that. But I must admit I like the intimacy of the smaller ones, because a lot of the ones I did are Fred Olsen ones, and
I think there's advantages and disadvantages.
800 or 900 passengers, and
So I love the piano bar on the small ships. Now, funny enough, we've just been on the Iona, which has got Gary Barlow's club. Gary Barlow actually performed on the ship, which was a bonus, but he's got a club there where 4 top-class musicians just play a jazz night.
Yeah.
And you go,
it's quite a small room, so it's...
But then when you're thinking about, I mean, people say, oh, people that have never been on a cruise ship really have no idea, because you've got the top entertainers in the world. Because there's nowhere, you know, there's not many venues for different acts to work on land. Yeah. And the cruise ships take the creme de la creme. I mean, you're seeing West End productions, you know, full out productions, and they're just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say to people, if you didn't enjoy your cruise, you probably chose the wrong ship or the wrong destination.
That's right. There are different types.
They're all different ships.
Absolutely.
You've just got to choose the right one.
Where's the next one? You've got one booked, haven't you?
We've got one going to the Bahamas.
Lovely.
Yeah, and then Carol and I taking an extra little trip after that. We decided to go back to Cuba. So we'll finish in the Bahamas, then fly to Miami, and then that takes us to Cuba. And we'll probably spend 10 days before coming home. So that's January gone.
Yeah, I know, that's the trouble. The years go by, don't they?
What a way to go.
Yeah, what a way to go.
Marty, really thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Guys, if you've not seen Marty on a ship,
forget it.
Because they're just tales you will not hear anywhere else.
Yeah.
No one else can tell these tales.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers, mate.
In our celebrity series, we talk to the actor Robert Dawes, who you'll know from Holby City. We talk to Ken Lennox, the royal photographer, who photographed the Queen for 65 years. And we speak to Francis Rossi. There's others. Join us on DorisVisits.com or on YouTube.com/DorisVisits.